In the world of filmmaking, there is a specific aspect that sometimes we forget to talk about, and that is the aspect of marketing. Yes, how do you promote a film? Now, in the style in which you promote a film can sometimes make or break the success of the film. And I feel like this past summer, we had a bit of a mixed bag of marketing and ultimately the success of that film either being jeopardized by the marketing or actually elevating the marketing to a certain extent. Now, what I think is the best movie of the summer may not be the same as what you think is the best movie of the summer. And ultimately, when we talk also about how well a movie did, it may not always correlate with how well the marketing was. Now, it honestly was a mixed bag this time around, this summer, but I feel like we were standing on pretty solid ground. Now, just to clarify something really quickly here, just because I think a movie's marketing is the best of the summer may not be the fact that I think the movie was the best movie of the summer. This is not a movie or what kind of movie I thought was the best movie of the summer type video. Just to be clear here, I am not talking about what is the best movie of the summer. That is not what this video is about. This video is simply about what I think, in my personal opinion, of what movie marketing hit harder this summer, period. That's all this movie business type talk is about in this video. Not what I think is the best movie this summer, but what is the best marketing that I saw coming from this summer. And ultimately, you will see that in my list, I'm kind of flexible with what I think is the best when it comes to the marketing, specifically this summer. So let's start off with what I think was probably the least effective marketing of the summer. And I have to say that was Megan 2.0. Now, as much as the first movie was a big hit and honestly resonated with so many audiences due to its like horror type movie and the fact that it was kind of like taking it in a more modern route, kind of pushed the movie in the right direction. Plus the marketing of the first movie was excellent. I believe like this time around, the marketing wasn't all that impressive because it only touched on a few areas. And what do I mean by that? Well, where would you mainly see the marketing for Megan? This time around, they decided to keep it more towards the Universal Studios area. And they ended up putting Megans all over Universal theme parks, you know. I remember seeing videos online of people posting that Megan was at Universal and she was showing up in the parades and that sort of thing. And she did like a little, you know, flash mob type thing. It's cool, it's interesting, but then you're limiting your audience to just mainly the people who are going to the theme parks or people who are watching videos of people who are going to theme parks. So you're kind of limiting your audience to a very slim type margin. Now, on top of that, I feel like as much as the marketing physically in the sort of let's put Megans to dance type marketing didn't quite work, where I kind of feel like it pushed it a little bit forward was the popcorn bucket. I have to say it. I saw that popcorn bucket in person and it was amazing. I mean, look at this. This is super cool. This is a really cool popcorn bucket that literally you can take the face off and you can see all the mechanical workings of Megan. Really cool. That idea in and of itself was brilliant. The fact that you could actually take the face off Megan and have all the mechanical, mechanical things that are on her face essentially showing up. That was pretty cool, and I have to give them props for making a really cool popcorn bucket. Now, where did that essentially all this marketing translate to? Well, unfortunately, this movie did not make all that much money, as you can see here. It made roughly around $39 million at the box office worldwide. $39 million at the box office worldwide. Now, mind you, the budget of this movie was roughly around 15 to 25 million, which you might say, oh, that's not a lot. So ultimately, it kind of profited, but let's be honest, the first movie was kind of on the same budget, if not slightly lower, and made over 150 million at the box office. So then again, the budget itself of the movie is not the problem. Ultimately, it just didn't resonate with audiences because of the style of film that they created. Now, as much as I thought it was a super fun film, maybe it didn't resonate with audiences because they were looking for something a little bit more horror related. But then again, that's what I think audiences were thinking at that time. But then again, I thought Megan 2.0 was really fun. Unfortunately, the marketing didn't really help the film to push it out of the $39 million budget that ultimately it could have had, or the box office that it could have had. Now, coming in right behind it, just cruising right behind it, ever so slitheringly, is Jurassic World Rebirth. Now, as much as I think of it being in the third spot on this list, there was a lot of little great marketing ploys that Jurassic World, aka Universal, put around it. So I think probably one of the more interesting ones that they did was they transformed a sort of indoor garden experience that I believe is in Singapore. I will correct myself on this, but I believe it was in Singapore that they did a sort of miniature theme park promoting Jurassic World. And I feel like that was the more elaborate promotion of Jurassic World. Now, I would say that that's probably top tier, but then again, you're limiting your budget or limiting ultimately your experience to people who can travel outside of the country and only people who might be watching a video of somebody who is ultimately traveling and recording this. So ultimately, your marketing for that specific experience is very limited. So it's great, but again, it's a bit of a limited kind of thing. Now, below that, I would say, is probably something that happened in Thailand that I think was really cool when they decided to put a big sort of dinosaur type sculpture in the water and pull it so that it looks like it was following the boat, similar to what you see in the film. I think the idea was brilliant. I feel like that is far more effective than the sort of indoor themed experience that they decided to do, because ultimately it promotes the movie and kind of allows the public in a wider way to see it happen. And ultimately, you don't have to pay to see that experience, and I feel like the other experience was kind of paid to do. So, again, I think that was a bit better as well. And along those lines, Universal ended up putting a sort of like poster with the same dinosaur that you see in the river, but in a more like static form at the theme parks. And it was a photo op. Cool idea, honestly, really cool idea to like promote the movie. Really fun. I'm not gonna lie, that was a pretty fun choice that they decided to do there. But ultimately, again, kind of limiting your sort of audience to only people who can travel and can officially touch that piece in some way or interact with that piece in some sort of way. Now, I think apart from all those things, you also have the popcorn bucket, which was a great little thing that they decided to do. They actually did like 2 different popcorn buckets. One of them was a sort of like dinosaur inside a container type thing, sort of like what you see in the movie where the dinosaurs are inside these sort of like big test tubes. You know, great idea. Honestly, would look great on a shelf inside your house. Excellent. But I feel like the other popcorn bucket was far more interesting because I remember seeing it as I was leaving the theater when I finished watching Jurassic World Rebirth, and that is the big muddy footprint of the T-Rex. That was a really genius idea on their part to make that a popcorn bucket because it's just a big tray. And I'm not kidding you. I saw somebody walk out of the theater with one of these. That thing was massive. I was like, what the heck are they holding? And then when I realized it, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. So that was a nice little touch. I would say that of all of the marketing things that they did, that is the closest you're going to have to promoting something in a big way that people can actually touch and buy and obviously own at some point. Now, as of the recording of this specific video, the movie is already out. Jurassic World Rebirth is already out on streaming and to be bought online, and you can actually go and buy it and watch it. So it's no longer during its theatrical run. Now, because of that, Universal is now doing this sort of like at-home release celebration thing that they're doing, where they invite people to like promote the movie for the fact that now it's online. It's a strange ploy, but then again, the people that they're choosing to go promote this are essentially the right people to choose. I mean, Taya Miller, she went on this trip to Thailand to promote the movie, and she did this like really cool little marketing thing where they have her running and, you know, to promote the movie, and obviously she posted that on Instagram, and that looked really cool. And they worked with the crew that actually worked alongside the actual movie, so that was a really cool touch for Universal to do. And on top of that, they also had Alice Johnson, who, again, great person to choose to go promote this film. And she also took a bunch of great photos, and I believe she also shot her video as well. And as well, somebody who I personally know, who I got to meet in person at MegaCon. Yes, as you are seeing right now, that is Dimitri, who has, you know, an incredible following, incredible guy. Honestly, go meet him in person. He's great. But he also did his video as well, and it looked amazing. I love the little Jet 2 holiday kind of ploy that he put in there, which was really cool, and I really thought that was pretty clever on his part. But nonetheless, I feel like that was a really cool idea to kind of market the movie, even though it's after its release in theaters. Now, to be honest, of all the movies that I'm going to talk about in this video, the highest grossing one happens to be this one, which is Jurassic World Rebirth. It literally made around $830 million at the box office. Now, obviously, you're going to say there's a lot of factors. It's a traditional IP. It's got a lot of little, you know, things here and there that people are going to ultimately relate to. And that's a great thing, because if you stop to think about it, one very simple thing that can get people excited for a movie is music. And one thing that this movie uses, which ultimately is an iconic piece of music, is the Jurassic World, aka Jurassic Park theme that John Williams himself wrote. So sometimes a little piece of music can ultimately enter your brain and kind of get you excited for a film. Hint, hint, we're going to be coming back to that very topic later on in this video. But nonetheless, this movie made $830 million on a $220 million budget. Now, you can say whatever you want about the story of this movie and how there's a lot of, like, you know, things that just doesn't make any sense, like I said in my video, but you do have to agree. Jurassic Park and Jurassic World as a whole is still a big winner, even when the movie is a bit kind of flip-floppy here and there. It's still a success, nonetheless. So for the next two films that I'm going to talk about, I could essentially say that they are a bit of a tie. They're a bit of a tie in many aspects. Now, obviously, some of the marketing of one film was better than the other, and vice versa. But I'm going to say that ultimately I could say it is a tie, but I just feel like the movie that is in my number one spot has an edge over the number two spot by a tiny hair, not by a lot, okay? It's not like a huge difference. It's a tiny hair of a difference, but it is the one that could essentially push a movie's marketing over the edge, for me personally. But for number 2, I have to say it is none other than Fantastic Four: First Steps. Now, Fantastic Four had a lot riding on it. It had incredible poster designs. Now, you can say what you want about the last 2 movies, but the last 2 films didn't really have posters that I could say like, oh my god, this really is just breathtaking and I just need to go see it. The poster designs that were posted for Fantastic Four are just chef's kiss beautiful. And as you can see here, every one that I saw just accentuated more my want to go see this film. So sometimes a poster can easily be something that can entice somebody to go see a film. Another thing as well that we gotta talk about. Yes, the popcorn buckets. Now, unlike the movie that I'm going to talk about after this one in and of itself had a lot of popcorn buckets to choose from. Like a whole slew, like a popcorn buckets galore type situation. And it did. But there's only one popcorn bucket that stands above all else. One that is so epic, so pristinely epic that most people would want to have them in their house, and that is obviously the Galactus popcorn bucket. This popcorn bucket is just none other than breathtaking. You know, I feel like Keanu Reeves right now, like, you're breathtaking. That's what it is. It is breathtaking how large this is. And it's so big that it won a Guinness Book of World Record. Like, that's insane. It can fit 2 popcorn buckets, like standard popcorn buckets, inside that head. It's gigantic, and I do think that that popcorn bucket alone was a massive marketing kind of like rush for people. Albeit it was a little bit pricey, but still a great marketing, push from that piece of plastic alone. Now you also have to give it up for Michael Giacchino. Now, wait. What? Marcelo, what are you talking about? Michael Giacchino. What does Michael Giacchino have to do with the marketing of this movie? He does. He has a lot to do with the marketing of this movie. Because if it was not for the Fantastic Four theme song in that trailer, I feel like not a lot of people would have been talking about this movie. I mean, I follow a lot of people who talk about films. And one of the big things that always comes up in any sort of conversation about the movie is that song. It's the Fantastic Four. I'm telling you, I have that as my alarm clock till this day. This movie came out almost a month ago now, which is insane to even think about. But this movie is almost a month ago that had came out, and I'm like mind blown that I still have that on my phone, and it wakes me up in the morning, and I'm like, it's an iconic piece of music. And that's also something that draws people into the marketing of this movie. So I feel like if it was not for Michael Giacchino, the marketing of this movie would have not enticed people to see them more. And trust me, if it were not for that song, I feel like my enthusiasm for the movie would have not reached the heights that it was prior to me seeing it in theaters. Now, apart from the music, you also have the visuals as well that came out with the film. And I feel like the little clips that they were putting out and the absolute abundance of trailers that they dropped online probably pushed people to go see this movie in theaters. Mind you, I feel like in a lot of cases, they were kind of, spoilery-ish trailers of scenes that were going to show up in the movie. But I feel like for a lot of people, it pushed them to go see it in theaters, and for other people, it did not push them to go see it in theaters. Nonetheless, I feel like that kind of would be a make or break thing for people. Whether or not you see a lot of the movie or see a little bit of the movie, I feel like that could be a make or break thing for people who are interested in seeing a movie in theaters. Now, I can't lie when I say that all these little things are great, but I feel like Sometimes when you are trying to see humans live their lives in a fictional world, you want to see if that fictional relationship can kind of translate to real life. And I feel like just the chemistry that the cast had in general was something that kind of brought people to be interested in the film as well. I watch sometimes TikTok creators showing like, oh, so-and-so was hugging so-and-so and people were playing around, and that sort of chemistry just pushed me over the edge to get me to go see this movie in theaters and see if their chemistry on screen is just as good as they are off screen. And believe it or not, I feel like that's also a big thing on marketing. I feel like a lot of people who are creators and directors and people who are creating films are also looking for great chemistry on screen, but when you have that on-screen chemistry also work outside of the film itself, that can also be a great marketing ploy, a marketing seed in a way to get people to actually go see the movie in theaters. And that chemistry of the cast alone, I think, pushed a lot of people to go see it in theaters. Now, as much as I can think that the chemistry between these characters are fantastic, no pun intended, I do think that there was one specific thing that we have to acknowledge, a big elephant in the room when it comes to what could have pushed people to go see this movie, and that is nature. Okay, I know you're confused right now. What are you talking about? Nature. The ever beautiful, ever growing, ever mysterious nature of how a man and a woman, when they come together, you know, I'm not going to give you guys the talk here. I'm not here to give you guys the talk. But it is the fact that Vanessa Kirby was pregnant throughout the marketing of this film. Now, obviously, I don't think that she timed her pregnancy to the release of this movie, because that would have been like kind of wicked and kind of wild if she did that. But if she did, that would have been really crazy and wild and kind of a stroke of genius. But I don't think she did that. I think that obviously she naturally was ready to have a child, and it happened to coincide with the release of this film, which ultimately got people curious. Like, oh, she's pregnant in the movie and she's pregnant in real life. That's kind of an interesting dynamic there. I think I should explore this film a little bit longer and see if maybe she's not wearing a fake belly. Honestly, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. People are gonna say stupid things online and trying to misconstrue what is simply just somebody trying to live their life. But nonetheless, this is something that probably pushed people over the edge and wanted people to kind of go see the movie just because they saw a pregnant woman, and then the fact that she's pregnant in the movie kind of kept people on their toes and curious as to how that happened. But nonetheless, it's just nature, and it just happened to coincide perfectly with the release of this film. Now, when it comes to the success of this film, it did somewhat deliver. Now, mind you, as of the recording of this movie is still in theaters. This movie has not had any sort of streaming date announced, or the fact that it's going to be coming out soon or anything. It's still within its release date. It's already been almost a month since this movie came out, so it's still within its window, within the 30-day window of the release of this film. So the box office could change, but as of what it stands right now, the box office is sitting at $469 million-ish dollars for the box office on a $200 million budget. Now, did it more than double? Yeah, it more than doubled its budget. But still, it could have been a whole lot more based on the cast that is in this movie and the fact that maybe people are going to want to see this even more so in the future in theaters, depending on how well it does either on streaming or maybe in its final weeks, but who knows. I think as much as I think the marketing was great of this movie, and I think it was really solid and it got people excited, it didn't translate entirely into the box office of the film. But then again, those are my thoughts on that specific situation. And now for our number one spot. The spot coveted by so many other movies this entire summer of incredible films. Mind you, I think that as much as Fantastic Four was a fantastic film, I also think that this movie is a fantastic movie, and that is Superman, which I think had also fantastic marketing, and probably of all the other movies that I spoke of, probably had the best marketing. And I feel like the difference between Fantastic Four and this movie are very slim in terms of its marketing, but it did a lot of things that kind of pushed it over the edge, but mainly one specific thing, which I'll touch upon in a little bit. But I think that, first off, it had great trailers. I think that it incited a certain amount of curiosity in people to go see it in theaters, because you don't expect to see, within, say, the first 10 minutes of a movie that is named Superman, the unbeatable superhero, the superhero that you do not expect to see get his ass handed to him, essentially get his ass handed to him within the first 10 minutes. So that kind of piqued people's curiosity, and that was in the trailer a lot. There's a lot of action sequences and a lot of little moments here and there. There's probably a clip here and there that was shown at, in certain areas, whether it be a talk show or somewhere where the cast is promoting the movie. So sure, those little things kind of pushed it over the edge. Again, just enough marketing to get people curious, which is fantastic. And I think it did really well when it came to the trailers. But something that pushed it even more so ahead that we have to talk about is the fact that they were using an iconic piece of music history. And I would put this probably in like maybe the top 5 most iconic pieces of music ever created, and that is the Superman theme. Now here's the thing. James Gunn is not stupid. This is a very smart man. James Gunn knows exactly what he is doing. He understands that if you do a movie about a superhero, which we know that in, let's say, the past 3 or 4 movies that such Superman popped up on screen was not very popular, you have to at least do something to push that character forward. And I think, musically speaking, when you use a great piece of music created by John Williams for that original Superman movie, that incredible Christopher Reeve Superman movie, you have to kind of utilize that music in some way, shape, or form. And that associates it with greatness. You associate that John Williams theme with greatness. So ultimately, it draws you to go see it in theaters in some way, shape, or form. So musically speaking, James Gunn hit it out of this ballpark entirely by choosing the John Williams theme and utilizing it not only in its marketing, but in the movie itself. And that also helped the movie move it forward. And I gotta say, when you use anything John Williams theme, you're probably gonna push your project way further in some way, shape, or form. And James Gunn knew that, and he passed the assignment with flying colors. Now, like I said before, when we were talking about Fantastic Four and how the cast had great chemistry, I feel like when you're talking about Superman, you also need to talk about the chemistry of your 2 main leads. And that is obviously, Superman and Lois Lane. Now, in this case, you have David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan, who are great actors, but also they have great chemistry. And that chemistry is very much highlighted in many cases, whether it be an interview or even behind the scenes. I mean, recently there is a clip online of, Rachel Brosnahan, kissing David Corenswet as they're shooting, and then they call cut, and then she kisses him again. Like, okay. Now you can clearly see that there's chemistry there, that there is a certain level of connection between your characters, and that ultimately translate into real life itself. So I love to see when you can have two actors that, as much as they are great on screen, but they're also great in real life. And you can see that in interviews, in the way that they talk about each other, in how there's a certain connection between the two for having gone through this experience together and for having played characters that are so iconic and kind of grabbing essences or nuances of these characters for themselves to ultimately use in their day-to-day life. Now, obviously, that could be a massive word salad for some people, but it is the truth. It is something that ultimately affects the creation of a character. That character study, that bond that you create while doing the character could ultimately, seep into the lives of, these actors. So it's really cool to see that they have that great chemistry with one another. And that also is a possibility to the success of this movie. The fact that they have great chemistry also pushes the fact that people might want to see this in theaters. They see them, talking about each other in marketing in some sort of way, or in a talking head, or they're talking about behind the scenes or that sort of thing, may pique somebody's interest into seeing like how well that chemistry plays out in theaters. And in this case, I think that it did really well by using, the chemistry of these two actors to push and promote the movie. Now, like I have been saying throughout this video, what would have made the number one spot for me? Like, what is the make or break thing for you when it comes to marketing a specific movie or show, and that can push a show or movie over the edge for you? And for me, in this case, was the physical marketing that they decided to do. Now, obviously, they decided to do a world tour to promote the movie. They went to places that are incredible, Singapore. They decided to go, to Brazil. They actually did an interview at the feet of the Christ the Redeemer statue, which is incredible. And I think probably the best thing that they decided to do was probably the Superman floating over the city. This incredible shot of Superman floating above the city. And mind you, this isn't like a life-size Superman. This thing is like, I think 8 or 9 feet tall, and they decided to actually create it and hang it from a building. And that's a great little marketing stunt that honestly would get people to just stare up and look up at the sky, which then again goes back to the actual marketing of this movie, which the poster easily says, look up. So ultimately you put it up at the top of a building, people are gonna naturally look up at it. So again, little connective things that coincide with each other that ultimately pushes the marketing forward. And this is just one of them. And I mean, obviously you had drone shows and you had, other little marketing things that they decided to do. But I think that hanging a Superman from a building and have people just look up at it was a brilliant marketing idea that honestly is what pushed for me something over the edge. But then again, going back to what I spoke about when it came to Jurassic World Rebirth, that was a very limited market, a very limited area that you were creating. But then they decided to put this online to more, expand that experience, to better expand the experience for people to see and actually admire in a big way. So I feel like that is what kind of pushed it over the edge, for me at least. Now, one of the little things that they decided to do, and again, no pun intended, little things, but crypto was a big part of the marketing, specifically when we talk about the popcorn buckets. I mean, look at this popcorn bucket. It's a great little popcorn bucket that you have crypto on. And then you have one with Superman as well, like if he's heating the popcorn, like from the outside of the popcorn. Like, that's a great little idea. Great stuff that you can put up on a shelf and people are just gonna be like, what? Like, really cool stuff. Really cool little marketing ploys that they did there. Again, I don't think that Superman's marketing for their popcorn buckets was as good as other people's. I still think it was really solid and great and really pushed people to actually go see the movie and possibly buy one for themselves. So great popcorn buckets really do bring people to the theater. Now, one of the big factors that I feel like, and I would say this is also a part of the reason why I think this movie succeeded and why I think it had the better marketing, I think ultimately comes down to the fact that it's trying to reintroduce DC to a broader audience. And I know that the reintroduction word is kind of weird because ultimately DC is DC. If you've seen Superman, you know what Superman is. If you've seen Batman, you know who Batman is. If you know who Wonder Woman is, you know what Wonder Woman does. So you know all these things. But this movie is trying to reintroduce you to a new DC universe, which now is gonna kind of take place of the Snyderverse that people so much talked about. And, you know, all the other movies that came along with it, you know, Wonder Woman, The Flash, you know, the sequel to the Wonder Woman movie, you know, Aquaman, you know, these movies that came in that universe. Now, they weren't successful, and ultimately it was due to the fact that that universe did not have a cohesive element to it. This one is trying to build that cohesive element from scratch, while also introducing us to new heroes as well. And a lot of the marketing of this movie is trying to reintroduce us to the version of Superman that most people grew up seeing, whether it be in comic books or in movies or in other pieces of marketing that they grew up with, whether it be, you know, even action figures. They're trying to reintroduce people to that classic image of Superman. And the marketing kind of did that. It kind of succeeded in pushing people to being like, oh, this isn't a dark, gritty Superman. This is a uplifting, kind of comedic and lighthearted movie that people kind of remember from, you know, the Christopher Reeve version, you know. Now, mind you, that version of the movie is far greater, and honestly, it's unobtainable to reach that, specifically nowadays. But for this movie, it kind of does its own thing and succeeds. And a lot of the marketing is kind of trying to show people that this is a new world that you're stepping into. And by doing so, I feel like it enticed people to go see it because it's something fresh, something new, something that's not dark and gritty, something that is not Snyderverse related, which I feel like, as much as I love Zack Snyder as a director, it's not a world that resonated with audiences. So honestly, Superman had a lot riding on its back to kind of promote DC in a way. And if it were not for the genius, you know, marketing strategy of James Gunn, I don't think this movie would have been the success that it was. And honestly, for the very first time in a really long time, DC beat out Marvel. I mean, the box office of this movie was $594 million, like around there in terms of money. The box office is great for this movie, and the budget was only $225 million. So, yeah, dude, like clearly people felt more enticed to go see Superman. Were it not for the great marketing that this movie had, maybe people wouldn't have gone see it. So ultimately, it pans out that way. If your marketing is great, people will tend to like gravitate toward what you are creating. And I think that in this case, people gravitated toward Superman a lot more. And like I said, the physical marketing, the physical idea of marketing, you know, really pushed things over the edge for Superman. And I said this before in a video that I did pretty much closer to the beginning of this channel, when I was talking about the PlayStation ad that I think was probably one of the best PlayStation ads I've seen in a long time, which was like the PlayStation, like right now, like live from PlayStation ad. That was a great ad, and it employed a lot of physical stuff to promote PS5. So I feel like a lot of that, you know, technique to promote even something simple as a piece of hardware ultimately translated really well to promoting Superman. So honestly, I still think that Superman's marketing is probably the best one that we've had in a really long time. But then again, that's just my opinion. That is just how I think, and I want to know how you think. What do you think? What do you think of the marketing of this film, or any of the films that I spoke about? Do you think that any of the marketing that you saw this summer enticed you to go see a movie? Like any of the pieces of clips and marketing and little moments that you saw of certain films, whether it be a popcorn bucket or a physical set, like what of a movie, what piece of a movie got you enticed to go see it in theaters? I want to hear from you. I want to know your thoughts, and I want them down in the comments below. And while you're down there, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified when new videos go live on this channel. And thank you so much for watching this video. And I'll see you in the next video.
Scrolling through YouTube, same old routine, then bam, movie savant, what a scene. Trivia bombshells dropping knowledge like rain. Forget the dishes, gotta watch it again. Movie buffs unite, savants to place. Subscribe and hit the bell, don't leave a trace. Next level knowledge keeps you in the loop. Savants got the scoop, ain't nothing to recoup.